Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Steve Rowell here. Today is Thursday, March the 14th, 2019. It's 4 p.m. in New York. It's 1 p.m. in Los Angeles. It is, if I could do my math right, 8 p.m. in London, Sydney, Australia. You should be somewhere around 7 in the morning, I think. But wherever you are, this is daylight savings time throwing me off. But wherever you are in the morning, thank you for joining us. Or in the afternoon or in the evening, thanks for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And as you can tell, Steve, I'm in kind of a tripping over the tongue mood. But, you know, hey, Facebook was tripping over itself for the last 24 hours. Instagram, WhatsApp, they were tripping over themselves. I think I'm allowed to trip over my tongue. What do you think?
I think so. I think we can safely get away with anything we want today after all the technical issues that Facebook's been having. So as long as we can do better than that, I'm sure we'll be fine.
Well, I can tell you this. We did try to do the live stream again, and you were sitting there while I was trying to do it. And unfortunately, Facebook is saying, sorry, there is an error. We can't help you. It's like, oh, dear. So if you were looking for the live stream, I'm glad you found the podcast, because that means you're subscribed to the podcast. That's really the most important thing. You get to find out what we're talking about today. The bad part of obviously is that we don't get those comments that we get from people during the live streaming. That's always fun because we get good questions that way and so forth. But that's okay. We're on our own today. We get to kind of come up with the topics for ourselves. And we got two creative guys here. I think we can pull that off one way or another. So what do you say? I think we should probably do a switch back and forth with questions, topics for us to address, questions that are typical of people who are, seeking coaching help or asking questions on Facebook or that kind of things. So that's what I'm thinking. You want to play that game?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see what goes on. So, all right, I'm going to come up with the first one here, and I'm going to do it my favorite way to do it, which is to open my mouth and find out what comes out. Because I've gotten better at that, believe it or not. I remember the first time I tried that, and I said, what if this is really going to work? I mean, I didn't know what was going to come out, but what came out was pretty good, and most of the time it's not too tangled. So, okay, open my mouth. Well, actually, I'm seeing, what the heck is that? I'm seeing a question on Facebook that I don't even understand what it means. That's probably just going to jam my channels up, so I won't look at that one. Do you have any idea what the pi day is? Pi, like in the mathematical number pi? What is the pi day? That's what this question is asking. I have no idea. And they're asking in an Abraham.
You know what, sorry?
They're asking it in an Abraham Hicks group. I mean,
I think they're reading the wrong books. I don't know. I didn't know there was although I think I've heard something about it before.
Have you?
But I'm not sure what it is. I've heard it in passing, but I don't know. I'm not sure why you want to celebrate.
Thought they were picking up. They thought they were picking up asking it as given, and it was actually their math book. I don't know.
Possibly.
It's a natural confusion, Math, Abraham Hicks. Yeah, sure. Okay, now. All right, so let's see. First question of the day. Okay, well, here we go. Facebook. Facebook caused a lot of problems for a lot of people who were trying to do their usual social media thing over the last 24 hours. And I'm sure there were a lot of people who got really, really frustrated about it. And I think it's safe to conjecture that a number of people, probably a significant number of people, got so upset about it they created a vibration that brought some more stuff into their lives. I mean, that seems kind of fair because people tend to have most people are focused more on negative than they realize. And so when something goes wrong, they kind of go ballistic on it. Other people have learned how to shrug it off, which is the good thing to do, right? You don't want to have Facebook ruling your emotions. But let's say you're somebody who kind of went ballistic on Facebook, and then you go to Steve Rowell, the coach, and says, Steve, I can't believe that Facebook is doing this to me. How did I attract that?
How did I attract that? That's a brilliant one, isn't it? But yeah, the Facebook issues, you do see, I have seen a lot of people getting very frustrated about it, and then when it has come back up and they are able to comment again, it's for some people, it's like the world's ended, which is, I find very, very difficult to understand, because if Facebook's off, or I haven't got access to a device to be on Facebook, that makes me quite happy sometimes, because then I can just I can just be with myself. I can be with myself. I can use that time to create and think positive things, and I'm not bombarded with things that are not relevant or not conducive with my thought processes and where I want to go. But from a deliberate creator point of view, really, we shouldn't be allowing anything outside of ourselves to affect our emotions and how we feel.
Ideally.
That's where we want to get to, which is a great place to be. But yeah, some people do find that difficult. But again, it's using these tools we've spoken about before. So it's just about taking a step back and just thinking, hang on a minute. Okay, Facebook's down. I can't comment on there. I can't put a post on there. I can't take a picture of the lovely meal I've just had delivered to my table that I want to show off my family.
Right.
What am I going to do? But taking a step back and just saying, okay, I've got some really nice food. I'm in a really nice restaurant with my family. I'd like to take a picture of it to show my friends. But is that really important right now? No, it's probably not that important. And is it going to cause me any issues moving forward in my life in the future? No, it isn't. Okay, well, we can accept that that's happened and get on with eating this nice food. That's the sort of thing. We need to bring ourselves back to the present moment and ask yourself, is this really going to cause me any issues moving forward in my life? And if the answer's no, just let it go. Yeah. Just let it go.
That's it. Exactly. But it also raises a point. It raises a point because what we're really talking about here is an issue. I don't think we've really discussed it very much on this program. Social media addiction. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people who rely on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these, social media platforms to fill gaps in their lives. And more importantly, to take their attention away from stuff that they don't like that's going on. They don't like what's going on in their family, their relationship, their job, their boss, their health. I mean, all kinds of things. But maybe if I just spend a little time in Facebook or play an online game or a video game or something, then for that period of time, I don't experience quite so much pain. That's essentially addiction.
It's exactly the same as any other addiction. I think we can all be guilty of it at times. I mean, I tend to use Facebook sometimes. I'll catch myself doing it, where I'll just be sat there innately scrolling through on the phone, scrolling,
right?
Scrolling. And I'm like, right, hang on, Steve, just stop. Why are you doing that? Well, the usual reason that I'm doing that is because I've got something really important that I need to do, but I've found this to do, so I can procrastinate and not go off and do the thing that I don't really want to do, but I know I have to.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's one thing that I'm guilty of using it for sometimes.
Sure.
But I don't know. I mean, I haven't experienced being addicted to it as such. But I do hear that there are people out there that are constantly on some form of screen.
Yeah.
The majority of their lives, and it's a little bit not concerning, but it's quite a sad place to be, I suppose, because you're not really experiencing life in real terms around you, are you? Because you're not interacting with other people, you're not interacting with the world, you're not creating anything apart from this screen in front of you and sitting there all day on that. Because there have been cases where people haven't left the house for years. Yeah. And they'll just do all online shopping, and they'll just constantly be on the computer screen. And I think that's
right.
I just can't. I do understand it, because it comes back down to this. Comes back down to making changes in your subconscious again, doesn't it? Because they've got that used to being that way and behaving in that way that's become normal. So if they even think about doing something different, maybe going outside or walking to the supermarket and doing the shopping in the supermarket instead of online, that will fill them with so much dread and fear, because it's different. The subconscious is going, no, we need to protect you here because we need to keep everything the same, because that's its job to keep everything the same. So it's exactly, you're right. It's absolutely 100% just like any other form of subconscious programming that you've done, that you've created over a period of time that's then ingrained into your behaviour patterns, really.
Yeah. In fact, there was a television commercial that ran for a short time. It didn't run for real long. It was about, I'm going to guess, 4 or 5 years ago here in the States. And the commercial showed two millennial couples sitting in a living room. They were spaced out in like a square, right? all sitting on different ends of couches and so forth, and they all had smartphones, and they were all, texting and so forth on their smartphones. They're all looking at their smartphones. No conversation going on. And the narrator of the commercial is talking about whatever the product was, insurance, I don't remember what it was, but talking about the product and how if you interact with this product, it will allow you to interact with other people in real time as human beings. And wouldn't that be great? And all four of them look up at once and look at the camera and go, nah, and they go back to the smartphones. And that kind of summarizes, there are a lot of people whose social life is on social media, which has raised, for some people, for some psychologists and so forth, it's raised concern, well, do they really have a life? And for other people, it's more like, well, why would I want to interact with the real world when it's so much nicer on social media? Social media is actually, in many ways, for many people, a friendlier environment than the real world. And it's an interesting debate. Which is better? Personally, I don't think you can really have a life unless you're actively interacting flesh to flesh with real human beings. But there are a lot of millennials who would disagree with me. To them, life is online. That's where everything's happening.
It is quite scary, really, because if I can't do that, if I stay in a house on a screen and do everything from there, if I'm busy working on things on a computer screen or whatever, and I haven't interacted with someone for more than 24 hours, I sort of start losing the plot a little bit. Mm-hmm. I can't. Mm-hmm. This is good. We're on a screen now, but we're actively.
Exactly. It's a real conversation going on here. Yeah.
Real conversation. It's not just, messages or comments on a screen, text.
Right.
In text, you can't feel somebody else's emotions. You can't judge how they're feeling, what they mean. So, for example, I've done it myself sometimes where somebody will send me a message either on Facebook or a text message on the phone, and I'll read it. And depending on how I feel at that moment in time, depends on how I read the message.
Yeah. If
I'm feeling anxious, I'll read it in an anxious way. So it might come across that this person's being aggressive or there's something to be worried about in the message, when actually they're not. They're just saying what's happening, or they're explaining something that's going to happen. And then I've taken it in the wrong way, and then I'll send a message back that reflects how I've interpreted that text, which is completely different to how they meant the text to come across. And then they're like, well, what are you talking about, Steve? So there's this, you can't interact with someone on an emotional level through text and through, social media in that way, I don't think.
Well, yeah, you're missing key information. Yeah, you can't read body language, for one thing. Body language is huge. We don't consciously necessarily think about body language, but we're constantly noticing it and reacting based on it. We just don't actually say, well, I am now reacting to the fact that you took a sip of your coffee, Steve. That's not the way we actually do it, but we still react to it. I just take note of the fact that you sipped your coffee, You can't do that on a text message. It's just like, they have little emoticons, I'm drinking coffee. It's supposed to replace the fact that I can't actually see you drinking your coffee, right?
A lot of the emotional stuff, I think, gets lost in translation. So I'm a little bit worried. We're not worried, but because I don't worry about things because I have no control over. But if everybody does end up just communicating online, not through conversation like we're having now, but through messaging or whatever, how are they going to grow emotionally as human beings? How are they going to understand how to interact one-on-one with a person or in a group or whatever? It's not going to work. However, saying that, they're not always on social media, are they? They still go to school.
No, not really.
They still go out into the world and do things. It's just a little bit different now.
And we are approaching the day where the text message is going to, I think, be a thing of the past, because we're getting more and more into virtual reality. We talk about people who stay at home all the time. There are people who all they do is play video games and and make money because other people are watching them play video games. Joel and I were talking about that this morning. It's the most bizarre phenomenon. You actually have a camera on a couple people who are in the same room playing the same video game. You're watching the video game on screen, and you're hearing their banal conversation going on about the game and what's going on in their life and what their opinion is on soap. And I mean, it's incredible that you often get like tens of thousands of people watching this, but that's what happens.
Yeah, this is
I mean,
always confusing. My children, they don't do it so much now, but they used to do that. There's a game called Minecraft,
yeah,
and
I've
there's
heard
this
of it.
guy.
Yeah.
They used to watch him. They were sat there. They were sat on a computer screen watching somebody else
Yeah,
play a game that they've got on their Xbox anyway. So why don't you just go
right.
and play it? I says, well, why don't you go play it yourself? Why are you watching this guy play it when I just didn't understand that. Maybe I'm getting old. Maybe I've grown up too much, but I don't know. No, you're right. I just don't understand that at all. I mean, surely that's got to be one of the most boring things you could ever do in your life. Watching somebody else play a computer. I get playing a computer game because you're involved in it, and you're getting some joy and pleasure out of being losing yourself in that space. It's like watching a movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
But watching somebody else watching a movie, now that's just odd.
Well, I've been told, now I don't understand completely myself, but I've been told that one of the main reasons for watching is you're watching somebody who's better at the game than you are. So you're picking up tips watching how they play. And I can kind of see that.
I get that.
But also it reminds me of, there's a guy who they did a documentary on here in the States. His name is David McConnell, I think it is. He's an author, a biographer, a history writer, but he's also done biographies on John Adams, of course, the second president of the United States, and I think he did one on Abraham Lincoln or Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, he's done a number of these kinds of biographies, and they did a biography on him. In the course of conversing with him and learning about who he was and so forth, he's a very successful man. He's won multiple Pulitzer Prizes. He has been narrator of TV documentaries. I mean, he's had this really interesting, varied career. And he said he made a really interesting comment. Now, he was talking about art, being an artist, learning how to paint and so forth. He said, there's really no way to learn how to be an artist, a painter, by reading a book. There's really only one way to learn to be an artist, and that is to get out a canvas and get out some paints and paint and create something terrible, throw it aside, put up another canvas and paint another thing that's less terrible, throw it aside, and just go through it over and over again until finally you start to put something together that looks good. The only way to learn to do art is to do art. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. The only way to learn to play Minecraft is to play Minecraft. Yes, you can learn something watching somebody else play, but really you're going to learn a whole lot more when you do the playing. And you're going to learn, and this is true for any game, I think, whether it be a video game or a card game or anything else. You'll learn about yourself when you play a game like that, because you learn where your own patterns become predictable that an opponent can take advantage of it, or you have certain things that always play out the same way, and if you can be observant and learn from that, you can actually make yourself a better video game player, card player, whatever the game is, sports, the sports person, if you're playing football, soccer, you can become better just by going out on the soccer pitch every day and playing and interacting with the other players and learning how to do your skill. And I think that's what we're really driving at here with people who are watching other people play a video game. Like, okay, you're going to learn something that way, but aren't you going to learn a lot more if you just play it?
It's like this analogy with successful people, and you'll get people that will watch other people become successful,
mm-hmm.
and say they want to be successful,
yeah,
but actually never ever take a step towards doing that. So I suppose it's a similar sort of situation to be in, isn't it? It's they'll watch somebody else do something because it's easier, because they don't have to put any responsibility maybe on themselves to go and do that. Mm-hmm. But they still feel like they're getting the experience of it, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It reminds me of, I think I told you that I helped to found an alternative school here in the U.S.
Yes, you did, yeah.
Based on the Sudbury model. Yeah. Fascinating to help found a Sudbury model school, because and to remind people what that is, a Sudbury school is one where the kids are in total control of their day, which will give many parents headaches because, oh my God, I don't want my kid to be in charge of his own day. He'll just play video games all day or whatever, But it is fascinating to watch what happens in an actual Sudbury school environment, to watch what kids do and to watch how they interact. Because what happens, well, I have to put like an asterisk on this, I realized just now, because the last time I observed a Sudbury school was before the current online video game rage. So there's probably a significant portion of Sudbury kids who are doing that thing that we've just been talking about. But put that aside for a moment and look at what the other kids are doing. What happens an awful lot is a whole lot of socialization. Yeah. The socialization socializing is huge in a Sudbury school. And what Sudbury's founders learned fairly early on is that a lot of learning goes on during that socializing, a huge amount of learning. One of the interesting facts about a Sudbury school is that when you put a kid into a Sudbury school from age 6 and just let them go until they're in the end of their normal school years and they can decide, do they want to go on to a university or do they want to start a career or whatever. If you just let them go that 12-year period or whatever it is, during that first 6 years or so, they will all learn to read. Most of them will learn basic math, arithmetic. Some of them will learn advanced math. Many of them will pursue the sciences. And no one will know where they learned it all. Because the staff members who will watch won't be able to see the learning happening. Because most of it will happen in ways they can't see. And they've realized that a large portion of it, I'm going to guess 70% of it, 80% of it, happens in socializing. The kids teach each other. It's kind of like the way today a kid learns how to use a smartphone or a computer. He learns it from his friends. All his friends say, well, I know how to do this. I know how to do that. Well, I can show you how to do that. I'll show you how to do that. And they teach each other what they've learned, and then they kind of piece together how to do the whole thing. Well, the same thing is true for if you let kids learn to read that way. They'll learn how to read. They'll teach each other how to read. Some of them you won't even know how they did it. There's this classic story that comes out of Sudbury Valley about the kid who went fishing every day. They had 6 acres for their school and 2 or 3 buildings, and it was a nice, really nice thing. Lots of room outside to play in and so forth. And they had a pond with a little bridge over it. And this kid would bring his fishing tackle every day and go fishing in the pond. Every day. Every day. His father was pulling his hair out. The kid just goes fishing every day. Until one day, after about 3 years of this, and the father had lost all his hair by that point, after 3 years of this, the kid who socialized with nobody, who never talked to anybody, came up to one of the staff members and said, I want to learn how to use a computer. And the staff member said, oh, okay, well, you're going to have to know how to read first. And the kid says, I know how to read. Where'd you learn to read? When I was fishing. Okay, well, this is a few years ago, so you had to know something about programming and so forth in order to use a computer. So they said, well, it also helps to know math because there's a lot of math in computer programming. Oh, I know how to do math. Where'd you learn to do math? While I was fishing. To this day, no staff member at that school knows how that kid learned how to read or to do math, but he did. And he ended up becoming a vice president at Hewlett-Packard.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Isn't that a wild story? But it's true. It's a true story. So I tell you all of that to kind of lay a foundation about how I believe the Sudbury model shows us the importance of socializing and of letting kids go off and explore their own stuff. And therein lies the rub, because we were talking about kids who play video games and they interact with Minecraft and they watch other people playing Minecraft. And the tendency we all have is to say, well, they shouldn't be doing that. And to this day, I'll still say that I don't think they're really growing well. But, and this is the really big but, if you let them do what they really are driven to do, they will find a way to learn what they want to do, what they would need to learn. They'll find a way to learn it, which is mind-boggling. But that's exactly what happens. And it happens, we should recognize this from law of attraction, right? If you focus on what you want, you're going to get what you want. That's what they do. They just never heard of law of attraction.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I think the traditional, I'll call it traditional school system, is probably the best way to put it.
Right.
Is about, I've got to be careful here, haven't I? the traditional school system, in my opinion, I'll say it that way, that's the best bit. In my opinion, compartmentalizes children into being a certain way, so fitting into a system of doing things.
Yeah, you won't get any argument out of me, I promise.
Oh, I know that. I absolutely know that, yeah. But this is what happens. So they're taught to, they all wear the same uniform.
Yep.
There are rules to follow. They have one lesson at a time on each subject. Everything's done. They have tests. But they're not allowed as such, like you've just discussed in that school model. So Sudbury school model, do you say, yeah?
Right. Yes.
They're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to be themselves and learn in their way. They're all given a set of rules to follow. They've all got to do it the same way and all expected to get the same results.
Right.
Which I think's completely wrong, because it's like the analogy by Albert Einstein, isn't it? Where you've got the different animals all stood in a row. There's an elephant, a monkey, a fish, and some other animals. I can't remember what the others are. But the analogy is, look, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to grow up thinking it's stupid. But isn't that so true? And that is what we're doing in effect with children in the traditional school system. You've all got to do it this way, otherwise, and if you don't succeed doing it that way, then you're a failure, which is completely wrong in my opinion.
It's a great reminder that what Abraham teaches us is true. You can't get it wrong, and you'll never get it done. Yeah. Or as I like to turn it around, we always get it right, and the road goes on forever. But especially that first part, I keep trying to remind myself, we always get it right. Even when it's the result that I don't want, I still got it right. Even when I see somebody doing what I think is screwing up, we always get it right. We always get it right.
Because each time we're doing something, we're always moving forward in some form or another, aren't we? We never go. You can never, ever go backwards. It's impossible to go backwards because you can't unlearn what you've learned.
Yeah.
So you're always moving forward. You're always growing.
You can let go of it. Okay, that thing that I learned doesn't serve me anymore, so I'll let go of that. You can do that.
Yeah, you can do that. But it's still there. You can never. It's still there. You still experienced it, so it's still there in your subconscious memories. And then you choose which ones you want to keep going with because they worked, and which ones you don't want to use because they didn't. And so you're always learning. And I think once you stop learning, I think that's when that's the end, isn't it? Why would you ever want to? Yeah, why would you ever want to? Yeah.
Yeah. And even then you don't stop learning. You just stop learning in this life with this body. That's all. You just move on to whatever's next.
Yeah, that's it.
Which is why I really like. I think that beautifully describes the Abraham Hicks philosophy, the way they teach it. That you can't ever stop being you. You can't ever stop growing. You just can't. Yeah. I mean, you might be able to stop growing in this body, but even then, you'll just move on to whatever's next. You'll keep growing more and more and more. Or it's the way they say it, expansion is our normal way of being. We are here to expand. We expand continuously. With every thought, with every deed, with everything that we focus on, we expand. And when I understand it that way, it took me a while to really get that concept. I don't know about you. Yeah. It took me quite some time to get that concept. But once I got it, I realized we actually couldn't live without it. There's no way to exist without that. You have to have that. That's essential. And it reinforces just how true law of attraction theory really is. Because that's core to law of attraction theory as well. It becomes clear that it's inseparable from life. Life, LOA, they are truly inseparable.
Yeah, so you're always... in effect, you are, with your thoughts, everything starts with that first thought, doesn't it?
Mm.
And then you get the emotion, then you move into the action that you take because of those thoughts and emotions, which then creates your next little moment of reality each moment of the day, week, month, a year, whatever.
Mm.
You're constantly creating each moment by moment, because that's all you've ever got. You've only got what you do in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Exactly.
That's it. Once you realise that that's all you've got, and that's the one thing that you're 100% in control of. Wow,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can
Yep.
completely change my life right now if I
Just like
want
that.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See, now this is a really
you're in the
powerful
fog.
game we're playing here. This game, we played the game. We're playing the game of let's each come up with a question to discuss. We just took a half an hour on the first question. I don't know if you realize that.
Really?
The first question was, what Facebook going down and all that. Look what it turned into. It's like, whoa!
It's awesome.
It turned into life universe and everything.
Absolutely. But it's, I mean, this is it. What the beauty of it is with just the now, because the now is just awesome because I can decide to either do something that's going to positively impact my life and my future existence, or I can
Right.
choose to do something that's going to negatively impact it. So I could, if I wanted to now, I could go run out in the middle of the road and get run over by a lorry on purpose, which would
You
have a
could.
massive negative impact on my life, wouldn't it?
It would shorten it tremendously.
Either that or it hurts a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Yes.
But
And
that's
so
how powerful.
speaking on behalf of our audience, I'm going to ask you, please don't do that.
No, I'm not going to do it. But
Oh, good.
yeah, I'm using it to make a point. But the point is, we are 100% in control of everything that we decide to do as human beings,
True.
whether that is a negative thing or a positive thing. So why don't we just choose positive things?
Yeah.
When you put it like that, it seems so simple, doesn't it?
It does. And I think it's 100% correct. There are some people who will tell you you can't be positive all the time. You can't focus on positive all the time. And they actually suggest that it is not a good thing to be positive all the time because you would never be engaging in contrast if it was always positive.
Absolutely.
I'm not so sure that's true.
I wouldn't say it's true as such, but you do need negative things because you can't have. Yeah, I don't think you can have the positive without some negative. So, for example, if I'm doing something that's really positive in my life and I'm making positive changes, then I will get a lot of negativity from something somewhere. It might be another person, it might be relatives, it could be something strange and weird will happen that's negative, that's trying to get my emotions back down to where they were. Usually I'll create that subconsciously anyway. But this is what this change is about. If you're wanting to move your life in a positive way, you are going to come up against resistance. I call it resistance, not negativity, because I
Sure.
don't like the word negativity. I prefer to call it something else, which is resistance.
That's fair.
And I think it's important to have that resistance and notice that it's there,
Mhm.
because if you're working with that resistance to move you forward, then that's again a positive thing, not a negative thing. So that I don't know. It's a strange.
You're touching on it right there. You're touching on my reason why I think what I said is true. Because I'm not saying that you can go through life and not have negativity. I'm saying you can go through life positively and always stay positively. And what that means is negative things will happen, but you don't have to react to them negatively. You can you can find ways to react to anything positively, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful, no matter how bad it is. Not always easy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's easy. It can be a real pain in the ass sometimes. It can be horrible. It can just flatten you. It can just be, I mean, the obvious example that comes to my mind quickly is Joel has adopted 3 boys in his life, and the first one, at age 21, got killed in an auto accident. I mean, that's devastating. That's horrible. Joel, to this day, he won't tell you that he's happy that it happened. But what he will tell you is that he learned so much about focusing on the love he had for his son and that his son had for him every time he thinks about it. So that even though I think it was a few weeks ago, he noticed and made note on Facebook about how this was his late son's birthday, I think it was.
Yeah,
And
I saw
he
the
remembers
post.
that. Yeah, you saw that one, right? And it was a beautiful post. And the purpose behind it was to celebrate the life. So he found this way to take a horrendous event and turn it into a positive. That's the skill of living right there. It is.
Yeah.
It is wonderful. So that's why I say we really can stay in the positive. but it's not easy. It means making choices, even in the face of the most difficult circumstances, to find the positive. That's the trick. That's the hard part. But it can be done.
Oh, it can be done. I mean, I lost my cousin when I was 21.
Mm.
21, yeah. And back then I wasn't in a very good place at that point in my life.
Mm.
It was before I decided to take back control of it, everything.
Right.
And he had a brain tumor, and
Oh,
I was 21, I think he was 24, and he was supposed to be coming to meet me that weekend to go out in the city for a few drinks and, to have
right.
some fun. And my parents came into my room, knocked on the door. I woke up and they told me he'd passed away.
Yeah.
And now I'd react to that completely differently to how I did then. Then I lost the plot. I drank ridiculous amounts of alcohol and got myself in a
Mm.
really bad place
Wow.
because he was like a brother to me because we were both
Yeah.
only children.
Right.
And a lot of my childhood, I spent up because they lived on a farm out in the countryside.
Uh-huh.
And I spent a lot of my childhood up there with him,
Uh-huh.
which got me away from what was happening at home with the things that were going on.
Right.
So that hit me quite hard at that point in time. But now when I look back and I see what he did with his life, because he didn't want to be a farmer like his dad.
Mm.
So he went to uni and he created this amazing life for himself. He worked for the big Conoco oil company as
Mm.
a chemical engineer.
Wow.
And I look back at it now, and it doesn't fill me with sadness. It fills me with joy that he'd done everything with his life that he'd set out to do,
Mm.
and then he passed away.
Yeah.
So actually, he'd done everything that ever said that he wanted to do, and he completed it. So it was his time to go anyway, because
Mm.
he got there. He's gone off and into this new realm of oneness, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. Right. Well, and
Because
that's a hard idea right there. A lot of
uh,
people would find that to be almost unfeeling. It would be, well, but I'm devastated by his loss, by losing him. I mean, him not being here is huge for me. It
yeah,
crushed me. It killed me. It just ruined my life. And people will stay there. They'll fight for that. They'll defend that. So presenting them with the idea that you should focus on the fact that he may have been done. Oh no, that the mind just resists that for so many different people.
yeah,
But that's exactly what Abraham teaches.
yeah,
They teach us that every one of us chooses when we're going to die. We all make the decision consciously, they say, which seems
absolutely.
hard to believe
Yeah.
for some people. It's hard. I'll be honest. Sometimes it's hard for me to believe, but nevertheless, I
I
have
have,
to admit it makes sense.
I have seen it. I
Mm.
have seen someone choose to do that, which was my granddad. He decided
Really?
that he'd had enough and he wanted to go, and
Hmm.
that's what he did. That
Yeah.
specific day when he said he'd had enough and he wanted to go, he just did.
Wow.
He went. So
Wow.
it's absolutely true. It is. People do choose when they've finished what they've got to do here.
My
Definitely.
sister-in-law's husband passed 2 years ago, January, I think it was. And previously, he was very overweight and had struggled with weight all his life. He tried all different things. He even did the bypass. He did all this stuff, and was never able to actually defeat that, so to speak. He was never able to overcome it. And he had said earlier on in his life that he'd probably make it to 70 and then he'd be done. Well, he died at age 70. I mean, right on, hit it right on the nose, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And Louise and I both noticed, we really paid attention to that. Like, wow, he really actually did say when he was done. Now, have I decided when I'm going to die? Not that way. I haven't. Nothing that conscious, and I don't think most people do. I think that's what makes it so hard to understand or even to believe that it's true. But you're right. We can all find examples in our lives of people. Well, I can tell you another one. Louise's stepmother. Her mother died when she was 21, I think, from a second stroke. And between the first and second stroke, my wife was her caregiver, which was kind of rough because she was 15 at the time of the first stroke. So as a teenager, she's being asked to be a full-time nurse for her mother. Well, anyway, got through all that, and it actually worked out well in the sense that she and her mother became very close. But then her mother passed at age 21. Her father ended up going through a number of relationships and then remarrying a number of years later to this woman named Ruth, who early on, Louise and Ruth had a terrible relationship. It was oil and water. They just did not get along at all. And Ruth made Louise's life miserable in so many ways. So Louise left home fairly soon, let's put it that way. But later on in life, not only did they reconcile, they actually became very good friends to the point where Louise was calling her every week to check up on her, how you doing? They had these long conversations by phone. So they had really reconciled very, very dramatically, very strongly. At the end of Ruth's life, Ruth was, I think she was around 90, something like that. And they had moved her into hospice. There had been a series of situations. So she was in hospice, and it was actually a rather nice facility, and there were opportunities for her to do things and so forth. But there were also a number of things happening to her physically. And she got to the point where she decided she just was done with she didn't want to have to do all the medication stuff. She didn't want to have to do all the regimens. She didn't want to have to do all these things. She didn't like the fact that she was unable to do the things she'd been able to do before. Yeah. And so she just decided, I'm just going to cut it all off. And the doctors told her, you're going to die if you do that. She says, yeah, I know. Yeah. And so we went, and this is surreal, we went to visit her 2 days before she died. She was as alert as can be. I mean, there was no hysteria going on. There was no medical emergency going on. She was just normal Ruth. And we all knew she was going to die in 2 days. And, well, we didn't know how long, but, it was going to be pretty quick. And we were there to say goodbye. I've never been through that before, where you're talking to somebody who's just as lucid as can be, and she's sitting up, she's having a normal conversation, and everyone in the room knows she's not going to be there in a few days. That was really interesting. I've never experienced that before. But what I can tell you is this. After all the goodbyes were said, and they were pretty tearful and so forth, as we're leaving the room, Louise walked out first. I stopped at the foot of Ruth's bed, and I turned to her, and I said, you're about to embark on a really cool adventure. And she gave me this quizzical look like, what are you talking about? But I knew she was about to go into the non-physical, and I've heard all the stories about how amazing and wonderful that is. So I had to tell her, you're about to go on an amazing adventure.
It's just, it takes away, because a lot of people fear death, don't they? But I don't understand that, because.
Well, you know what I think happens? I think what happens is, it isn't so much they fear the death. They'll tell you that they fear the death, but I don't think that's really what it is. I think it's that they're upset because they're hurt that the person they loved isn't there anymore, and they were depending on that person for something that helped to fill them.
Yeah.
One of the things that happens a lot, and you know about it and probably have dealt with it as a coach, any psychotherapist knows about it, is there is a cycle of grief whenever someone dies. There's a 5-step process and that kind of thing. And after Ruth died, Louise went through her grieving and so forth. But it wasn't a major grieving thing. It was fairly quick for her. And then about 6-7 months later, she was sitting there, and it was on a Wednesday. Wednesday was the day she always called Ruth. And it finally hit home that she couldn't call Ruth anymore. And she broke down in tears, and she was in real pain. You could just see it on her face. She was hurting so much. And I didn't know what to do to help her. But I just got this impression, just something to do. So I just went with it. And now we have a sectional couch, and Louise likes to sit in the corner of the sectional couch so she can stretch out, and she's got all her stuff around her, so she uses the couch kind of like a side table sort of. So she's in her corner of the couch, and I just went over to right in front of her on the floor in that corner, and she wondered what I'm doing because I never do that, right? So I go over there, I sit in front of her, I sit down on the ground in front of her, and she's looking at me, and I said, I never asked you this before. But what was it you loved most about Ruth? And she stopped, and her face shifted, and her attention shifted, and you could see her face lifting away all the wrinkles and all the strain was going away. And she said, I had forgotten that. And then she started telling me what she loved about Ruth. And in seconds, all the grief was gone. Now, Louise is a former psychotherapist. And she said, you're amazing. You just figured out how to skip past all 5 steps of grief to go to acceptance. That's pretty cool. Now, I didn't know what I was doing when I did that. But I have used that since then with people who are in grief. It's amazing how fast you can help them get there just by focusing on the love. And what I've realized is grief is about focusing on the loss. You overcome grief by focusing on the love.
But they say that grief and love are very, very similar, aren't they? They're actually the same emotion, just reversed.
I'm not so sure about that. That's what my little discovery, I think, showed. I think grief is focusing on loss, not on love.
Well, that's what I mean, because love, you're gaining something, aren't you? And then grief, you're losing something. So it's the polar opposite. That's what I'm saying. That's what I meant. Sorry.
Oh, I see. Okay, polar opposite. Okay, I got you.
So one's the positive and one's the negative. But you can, because that's what I did with my cousin Darren. Is I switched it round to how wonderful his life was and what I saw and the positives that I'd learned from him in effect. And then it dissipates the negative grief.
I think taking the Abraham example, Abraham says that the opposite of everything is the lack of that thing. So everything is a two-ended stick. There's thing and there's lack of thing. Yeah. And I think that's what we're saying here. Grief is lack of love. That's what it really is. It's shutting yourself off from the love, and so you feel grief.
It's like when you break up with a partner. It's exactly the same. You go through a period of grief, don't you?
Sure.
That's if you didn't want to break up with them. If you didn't want to break up with them, that's different. But
if you did want to, it's probably just go for a beer and you're done. But
But yeah, it's a similar sort of thing, isn't it? It's exactly the same sort of feelings that you get when you split with, in a relationship, or if somebody passes away. It's exactly the same. Exactly the same.
So when we see these questions on Facebook, particularly, usually from young women, usually in their 20s, who they broke up with their boyfriend or the boyfriend broke up with them, and they're heartbroken, and they're expressing how heartbroken they are, and it hurts so much. And how can I get him back? How can I get him back? I need to heal this. It hurts so much. And every time I see that, I want to find some way to tell them you're focusing on the wrong end of the stick. But you can't always do that because they're not necessarily receptive to it because they are focused on that end of the stick, and that's what they're focused on. I guess that's the coach's job, isn't it, to try to figure out how to get them off that lack and put them onto the other end of the stick.
That's it. I suppose the only way to do that is to get them to focus on accepting that it's happened and planning what they want to do next and move on to. Mm-hmm. So it's about focusing on that, or focusing on even the good times that they had with that person and being grateful for those, but then looking at what they want to experience next in their lives without focusing on that person because that person is no longer there.
Yeah.
But it is a difficult one. It is a difficult one to approach with people.
And it's important to get there sooner rather than later, if possible, because I remember there was only one time in my life where I did have that kind of heartbreak that was extended. And I allowed it to last for about 3 or 4 months before I finally let go of it. Now, I didn't have counseling or something like that. I just kind of let go of it because I didn't know what else to do, which was the right thing to do, and I stopped focusing on it. But I kind of wish I had understood what it was to do, what I could do to change that pattern, because I didn't know. And so many people don't know that. I think it's probably the hardest part. If you don't know what to do, what do you do?
That's a good question. You ask.
Yeah, you ask, right?
Ask for help. That's the only way out of it, isn't it?
It really is.
I think that's one thing that I learned was to ask for help I will always, if I'm stuck now, I will always get in touch with somebody and ask help. Because if I don't know how to do something, there's got to be someone out there that does.
Oh, yeah.
There's been through a similar situation as me, because there are billions of people in the world, so there's got to be one person that's been through a similar sort of situation to me. So I'll always ask. It's usually my coach or another coach that I know, or something like that. I'll just say, look, this is going on. I haven't come across it before. What the hell do I do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do I move forward from it? How do I accept it and get a move on? And I think sometimes, even now, I can still struggle. Struggle's not the word. Find it challenging to move past certain things, especially with this business with the newspaper article. I had to speak to my coach about that because it's something I haven't done before, so it's brand new.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done anything like this before. I haven't pushed my boundaries as far as I have before. And I think we all forget as human beings that when we do come up against something new, that we haven't done it before, we shouldn't expect ourselves to know how to handle something that we haven't handled before. Because we are still learning. Everybody's still learning. It's like, for example, a child that's learning to ride the bike. You can't expect a child to get on a bike and ride it first time. It's just not going to happen because they haven't done it before. It takes practice and the guidance of an adult or somebody that's done it before to help them get to where they need to be, which is exactly the same as coaching.
Yeah.
If you can't work out how you can move forward yourself, then somebody else probably can help you do that, which is
yeah. When you ask for help, what you're basically saying is, I'm ready to be unstuck.
Yeah. Not a lot of people think asking for help makes them weak, but actually, no, it makes you really, really strong and emotionally aware of yourself, really, because you've realised that it's something that you do need, you do want to overcome. You've tried yourself, it didn't work, so the only other option is to go and ask for help. And nobody, in my experience, unless they're not a very nice person, will judge you for that. Everybody's quite happy to help.
Well, most people
Especially,
are, yeah.
Most people are. It's not, you don't, I mean, you might get some people that judge people, but I don't think it's, if you're genuinely asking for help, nobody's going to see that as a negative thing.
And among those people who are the judgy ones, 99 times out of 100, what they're really doing is judging themselves. It has nothing to do with you at all.
100%, yeah. It's like, if someone says something negative towards you or is not very nice towards you, they're actually just giving you a reflection of themselves. Because they're feeling bad inside. They're having to get that out and project it onto somebody else to try and make themselves feel better. That's always the one. So yeah, it's one of the 4 agreements, isn't it? Don't take anything personally.
I don't know the 4 agreements. Tell me about the 4 agreements.
I can't remember the other 3. I'll tell you. I've got them written down.
Oh, we lost your video. I don't know what happened there.
Hello?
I see you, or hear you. I just don't see you. Your video went off for some reason. That's all right. Don't worry about it.
I'll get it back on. Well, nobody can see us anyway, can they? Because we're not live, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's true. It'll go on YouTube, but that's right. They saw you for most of it, so it's no big deal. Hearing you is the most important part. So, sorry, what were you going to say about the 4? What do they call the 4 what?
The 4 agreements. It's a book by Don Miguel Ruiz.
I don't think I know the book, but that's all right. So anyway, we got about a little over 5 minutes left. I want to make sure I get a couple things in because I have a tendency to forget. I haven't been doing my job lately, Steve. It's kind of an embarrassment, but it's true. But I really want to remind people, if you're not yet a subscriber to the podcast, please become one. We've actually done a little change to make it easier to, even one step easier than it was before to become a subscriber. and you can do that at the homepage of the website, loatoday.net. We also tend to put the links in most of the places where we post this stuff, so you can look there first, but if you don't see a link, just go to the homepage. And we're also asking people, make sure that you share the fact that you're listening and that you're watching with other people so that more people can get that daily dose of happy. Because, I mean, you know how much time and how much fun we have doing this. Even when we can't do the live stream portion. Live stream is always fun, but even without a live stream, it's still great. It's still a good pick-me-up, and other people get that benefit too. So make sure that you're subscribing if you're not yet a subscriber, and make sure that you're sharing. And, I mean, just because we were talking about being on social media and how some people can be on there a lot doesn't mean that you shouldn't take advantage and post on social media. You should. Tell them about us. We like it. And also, I want to, before we part, I want to make sure, Steve, that I give you the chance to tell people how to reach you and how to find out about Steve Rowell, the coach. And, you know, how do they reach you?
Can you see me again now?
I do see you. Yes, your video's back. So that's good.
Sorry, I think I lost sound as well because I couldn't hear you for a while. So I think I've just caught the last bit.
I was just telling people how to subscribe and how to share and all that kind of thing. But I also want to give people a chance to know how to find you too.
Yeah. Well, they can find me on Facebook at Steve Rowell, Do Life on Purpose. And they can also get onto my website, which is www.dolifeonpurpose.com. Also, anybody that is a subscriber to LOA Today, if you do want to work with me, I will offer a free, 100% free, what I call a discovery call, where you can find out a bit about me. I can find out a bit about you. See if you, see if we're compatible working together. But also, if you do decide to work with me, anybody that mentions LOA Today will get a 50% discount on my fees.
Whoa! Oh my God! Whoa! I'm glad that we got your picture back. There are a lot of people who are glad that we got your picture back. Whoa, what an offer that is. On behalf of all my listeners, thank you for that offer. What a generous thing to do. That's fabulous.
Well, we get support on here. All they have to do is reach out, send me a message through Facebook Messenger, or get on my website and click the contact button on there. You can do it through there, or you can find me on Instagram at steve.rowell and just direct message me through there. Any which way you want to do it, you can click on the links to LOA Today. You put a comment in there, and I'll contact you through Messenger, whatever you want to do.
Fabulous. Whoa. See, now what you've done, Steve, is you reminded me the value of remembering to put the little messages out every time, because I'd kind of forgotten that. I wasn't doing it every time. You're saying to me, well, do this more often. Your listeners are going to get these great benefits. Like, oh, duh, why didn't I think of that? Thank you for sharing that with people. That what a wonderful gift that you're giving to listeners. So thank you very much for that. That's really
well. I figure that we're on here and we're getting all this exposure, and we're getting to have these wonderful conversations and speak to people that we wouldn't normally be able to. Right, so it's. Yeah. I've got to give back, haven't I? I've got to give back.
That is so fabulous. Wow. I'm grateful to hear that. Well, you just gave me a lift for the day, especially after we were talking about, death and really difficult subjects like that. All of a sudden, we're giving these wonderful gifts to our listeners. How good.
We got from Facebook not allowing us to post live videos to the meaning of life and death. So, yeah, we've done pretty well there.
This has been quite an adventure here, no doubt about it. We covered a lot. We've set the bar high. This is going to be kind of hard to top next Tuesday, but somehow Tuesday, I think we're going to find a way to do it anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think so
too. Hey, Steve, thank you so much for coming on today. Thanks for having this great chat. I really appreciate it. Hopefully next time we'll have the full live stream too, so we can have the interaction with people who listen to the live stream. But in the meantime, thank you very much, and thanks to our podcast listeners as well. Of course, that's where most of the people are anyway, listening to the podcast. Because we love you. We love the fact that you listen and you're so regular. And I got to tell you, Steve, lately I've been watching the numbers a little bit. Last few days, it's like we had these huge spikes in activity. So people are really starting to listen in a big way lately. So you couldn't have timed it better. You really couldn't have. This is great.
Fantastic. That's great. Okay. Well, what I was thinking of. Well, I'll let you finish up and do what you need to do, but then we'll have a chat afterwards if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. That's great. That sounds good. So in the meantime, I'll just say goodbye to our listeners. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.